All right, let's just get right into this thing, man. We are in Week 12, Week 12 quarterback prospect rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft. This is so sad. It is so sad that we are in Week 12. I guess it's sad and good at the same time because games are starting to mean more. We are getting closer and closer to bowl season. We're getting closer and closer to the college football playoff. We're getting closer and closer to naming a Heisman Trophy winner. We're getting closer and closer to the NFL Draft. But in the same breath, the season is almost done, and I will say that every single week that we do this, I said it last week, I think I said it the week before that, and I'm saying it this week, it's just sad that college football is coming to an end here shortly. Like, it's just weird to think about, isn't it? It doesn't feel like it's been that long since the season started, and now we're already at the end of it. I don't like it. Not really the biggest fan of it, but again, we're going to have to take these moments and cherish them while we can, because once season's over and we are in that purgatory of no football, we're going to miss this time. We would just need one football game because anything is better than watching the UFL. Anything is better than watching the UFL. Yes, again, we have the NFL Draft coming up in April, but that gap between the Super Bowl and the draft in April, that's a pretty big gap. It's a pretty sizable gap. Yes, we've got some off-season things like the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, the Combine to keep us occupied up until then, but most of us out there are not really going to sit around and watch the UFL. Like, just to get our football kick in. We'll just be watching stuff throughout the offseason about, like, who could go where, what team's going to do what trades could happen, like, all of that stuff will fill my football void leading up to next season, which, again, once it starts, it's going to be so sad because once it starts, it's just going to end, and that makes it sad. But you can just enjoy the ride along the way. But let's just get right into it, I guess. Yeah, no real big time intro on this one. I know it's kind of become a thing where we just have this prolonged intro that leads into it that may or may not be needed, but this week we're just going to go right into it, and we're going to start off with the honorable mentions. Obviously, as we always do, we have 5 honorable mentions. If it's the first time you've ever watched or listened to one of these videos, we have 5 honorable mentions in order by last name. So it's not 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so on and so forth. It's just ordered by last name. But I guess you could go number 1, I guess, just because their last name comes first on the honorable mention section, is Noah Fifita. I always struggle with coming up with the 5th quarterback on this list. I usually come up with 4 fairly quickly. It's the 5th one that I kind of struggle with. Last week we had Malik Murphy. I think we had Miller Moss in there. We've had Connor Wegman. Now we've got Noah Fifita back. He's been in here before. Jalen Daniels, I think, is also featured in the honorable mention section before, but no more than 1 week. Same goes for Malik Murphy, but Noah Fifita, who has not had the season that I think a lot of people were expecting. You could kind of say that for Arizona as a whole. Yes, McMillan's a beast at wide receiver, and he'll definitely get taken within the top 10 of the NFL draft as things stand right now. Obviously, there could be some things that happen up until the draft, but right now, right here and now, McMillan will probably be the first wide receiver taken if you don't include Travis Hunter, because I guess you could say Travis Hunter will be the first receiver taken, but you also say he's the first corner taken. He's just the first player taken. But McMillan won't be far behind him regardless. But Noah Fifita has had 15 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions up to this point in the season. Arizona is fighting for bowl eligibility right now. They are 4-6, I believe. So every single game the remaining of the season, they're just going to be fighting for their ever-loving lives. But Noah Fifita, with last week against Houston, a 27-3 win, 20 for 35, 224, 2 tuds. Did have an interception in the game, but that 27-3 win at home was very much needed to, again, keep their season alive. So he comes in the honorable mention section. Next is Dylan Gabriel, who, against Wisconsin last week, him and the Ducks narrowly escaped from Camp Randall with their lives, winning 16-13, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting going into that game. I certainly wasn't thinking that. I know Camp Randall's a very tough place to play. I understand Oregon hasn't really had a lot of hasn't had a break this season so far. Like this upcoming week is their only break, or their first break in the season. So they've needed that. So maybe it was just a little bit of fatigue. Maybe it was a little bit of a looking past Wisconsin a little bit, because Wisconsin has kind of been that team that has lost who they're supposed to lose to and beaten who they're supposed to beat. And they've beaten those teams good, and they've lost those teams fairly good. I mean, they lost by 42-10 against Iowa. So when Oregon came to town, I wasn't expecting like an absolute demolition, because Oregon consistently this year has won games like somewhere between 35 to 40 points on offense. The defense gives somewhere around like 10 to 20 points a game. Consistently winning games by double digits, but it's not like the most convincing is not the right word, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. But Dylan Gabriel in this game against Wisconsin did not have a passing touchdown. Did have an interception in the red zone. He threw for 218 yards in this game as well in the season. 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, with also 6 rushing touchdowns. And I saw something today on Twitter, or yesterday on Twitter, about Dillon Gabriel. And you can call me a hater. I mean, I've already been like a little bit put on blast for my not quote unquote respect for Dillon Gabriel. I guess I got one of my blog posts, or one of my Instagram posts, someone commented that Dillon Gabriel hate is asinine. Dillon Gabriel hate is asinine. I didn't think I was hating on Dillon Gabriel per se, but I could see where that be perceived that as such, because I don't think he should be the Heisman winner. I don't really think he should be in the conversation for the Heisman. He's not had a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. He's obviously the career passing touchdown leader in college football. And I saw someone today, or again, yesterday, compare him to Bo Nix. Like, Bo Nix' success in the NFL is good for Dillon Gabriel. It's like, well, that would make sense. I mean, it's just for the long-term, like, quarterback thing in college football, because Bo Nix held the record for most starts in college, and he had his 55th start in college the exact same time Justin Herbert had 55 starts in the NFL, or around that same time. And they played each other while Justin Herbert was at Oregon and Bo Nix was at Auburn. They played each other in college, and 55 games later, Bo Nix was still kicking it in college. So yeah, if you want to use that perspective on like quarterbacks that stay forever in college, that's helping. Bo Nix is helping their case because he's having early success in the NFL. One of the favorites for Rookie of the Year as things stand right now. But the problem is Dillon Gabriel is not Bo Nix. Like, if you're comparing them as prospects, they're not the same prospect. Bo Nix has a better arm than Dillon Gabriel. He's bigger than Dillon Gabriel. He's faster than Dillon Gabriel. Like, all the things that you'd point to for a prospect's perspective, Bo Nix has above Dillon Gabriel, in my opinion. I'm not sitting here and saying Dillon Gabriel's a bad quarterback. I don't want to get that misconstrued or anything. I don't want it to be like, oh, Logan's just going in on Dillon Gabriel. No, I'm not saying that. I just think he's fine. I think he's fine. I think he can have a good career in the NFL. I don't think he's necessarily one of the go-to guys in this draft class. I could be very, very wrong. And I'm open to doing that. Again, Dillon Gabriel is my preseason Heisman pick. So I don't want to make it sound like I absolutely hate Dillon Gabriel. I just don't necessarily enjoy the fact that he's in the Heisman race just because his team is undefeated. And I understand that's how the awards work now in college football and the NFL, is that if you're the starting quarterback for the best team in the NFL or college football, you're going to be in there for all the awards. Like, Patrick Mahomes is 11 to 15 touchdowns and 11 picks this year, and he was the MVP, one of the MVP favorites until this past weekend when the Chiefs just lost to the Bills. The only reason he was in that conversation is because the Chiefs were undefeated. He wasn't playing anywhere near an MVP level, but he was in that conversation because the Chiefs were having a successful season. Like, Dillon Gabriel's not had a bad season. Again, I need to keep reiterating that because I don't want to get things crossed. I don't want to get wires crossed or anything. Dillon Gabriel's not had a bad season. Dillon Gabriel's not a bad quarterback. I just don't think that he should be the Heisman from the quarterback positions. And I don't think a quarterback should win the Heisman, nor do I think one will win the Heisman this year. It's really between Genty and Travis Hunter, and you can have your own opinions about who should win it between those two. But Dillon Gabriel, not a great game this week. Doesn't gloss over the entirety of his season so far. But yeah, the Bo Nix thing, I think that's fine on face value from like a length in college standpoint. But from a prospect-to-prospect comparison standpoint, apart from the fact they played at Oregon, there's no real other comparisons, really, in my mind anyways. Maybe I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Maybe you think something completely different than I do. That's perfectly fine. But that's where I think it stops and starts there. But the next one on this list is Will Howard. 2 touchdowns, 15 for 24, 247 in a win against Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Nothing to really talk about here. Northwestern's a bad football team. Ohio State's a good football team, and they handled as such. Will Howard did not have the greatest game of all time, but in games like this, you just need to perform good because their games are supposed to win. Now, you would expect him to put up some bigger numbers because he's playing such a bad team, but he didn't turn the ball over, which I think is key in these types of games, and they came out with a big win. Ohio State really didn't get out the gates that quick. Northwestern was up 7-0 in this game, but yeah, they handled business. They won the game. 2 touchdowns for Will Howard. He has 24 touchdowns and 5 picks on the season to go along with 6 rushing touchdowns. Next on the list is Cade Klubnik, 288 passing, 2 touchdowns. Also had 41 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown against Pitt. As Clemson won 24-20. He was the leading rusher in the game against Pittsburgh. But yeah, Cade Klubnik comes in as, I guess, number 4 on the honorable mention section, just by courtesy of his last name. And then Kyle McCord comes in next, 323 passing, 1 touchdown, no picks, which is, again, every time Kyle McCord does not throw an interception, I think that's a plus. You have that one game with 5 picks against Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's not great. So I want to see you not turn the ball over that much after that, because that could kind of cause things to spiral out of control a little bit. If you throw 5 interceptions one game, that you're not really going to have the most confidence moving forward. So it's nice to see that he hasn't thrown a ton of interceptions since then, but 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions on the season. Does also have 2 rushing touchdowns. So those are our honorable mentions. Moving into number 10 on this list is Riley Leonard. And before I get into this, I would just like to say, I don't think Riley Leonard had a great game, like a fantastic game this past week against Virginia. The Notre Dame defense really carried the Fighting Irish in this one. I think they had like 3 picks in the first half or something like that. Like, they set up the Notre Dame offense with such good field position that Notre Dame really had no choice but to score touchdowns. I don't think they converted a third down until the second half. Like, it took them a long time to convert a third down. They went 3 and out. I want to say like 4 times the first half or something like that. Like, this was not necessarily the most convincing Notre Dame win of all time. Yes, they won 35-14, but again, a lot of those points came from them playing on short fields because the defense would either get a fumble recovery or an interception and return it all the way back to the 20. Like, they just had a very easy game, and I don't really think they got fully into gear a little bit. And Riley Leonard did throw a complete a season-high passes with 22, also threw for 214. He had a joint season-high in passing touchdowns with 3, but nothing really that spectacular. He also had 32 yards on the ground in the win. He has 641 yards on the ground and 13 touchdowns. This is his first game since I think week 1 against Texas A&M where he has not registered a rushing touchdown, which is kind of weird to say from Riley Leonard, but 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception wasn't great. It wasn't great. Came early on in the second half. Basically just threw it right to the defender. Just late on the throw, I guess you could say. Like, he tried to hit a receiver near the far side, the motion receiver across. Tried to hit the tight end, or not the tight end, the receiver, just past the first down marker, just to pick, again, their first down of the game on third down. This is at the 12-10 mark in the third quarter, and they still had not picked up a first down on third down. So, yeah, it wasn't a great decision from Leonard. He tried to fit it in a tight window, and the linebacker from Virginia just read it perfectly. It just wasn't, it was never going to work. It was never going to work. I don't care how strong of an arm you have, and Riley Leonard does have a decently strong arm, but it's not going to work. That kind of play is not going to work. He did have his first passing touchdown of the game. Or no, not his second pass. Which was this? His first or second passing touchdown of the game? I don't remember. I think it was his second passing touchdown of the game. Rolled out to the right, hit his tight end in the flat. Or just on the sideline, not the flat. But rolled out, just dumped it off to him. Easy touchdown from there. And then he kind of got things going a little bit more later in the third quarter. Had a really nice pass down the middle of the field to Jaden Harrison that would go for 25 yards, get him 5 yards within the 50. Like, just floated it over the top of the defense, over the top of the linebacker, got it to his receiver, who made a very nice catch while getting hit. Like, that's what we like to see. Riley Leonard also was able to roll it to his right on a third down, this was first down. This was first down. 3rd and 13, that was Jaden Harrison. That was the third down conversion they had right there. But he had a first down completion to play later to his running back, Aeneas Williams, which rolls out to his right, throws it back across his body, and the running back's able to make a few defenders miss, pick up 17 yards, get them to the Virginia side of the 50. We also see him use his legs a little bit later, stepping up to the pocket, rolling out to the right, leading his blockers down the field, or leading his blocker, I guess, down the field, and picking up a decent amount of yards. Again, this wasn't the greatest game of all time from Riley Leonard. It was far from the greatest game of all time, but it was a good enough game to get the win again. Joint season high 3 touchdowns, season high 22 completions in the win. Interception, not great. Yes, we obviously know the interception was not the greatest interception of all time. You don't like to see those types of throws, but they're inevitable sometimes. He's done a pretty good job at avoiding turnovers, which is something that was kind of a problem for him earlier in the year. But 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the season, also 13 rushing touchdowns. He's had a good go of things recently. I just don't think, again, this wasn't his best game. Was far from his worst game, but it wasn't his best game at all. But I don't think it was bad enough to drop him out of the top 10 because I don't think anybody's performances from outside the top 10, namely like Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard, who are the 2 guys that are usually competing for that 10th spot, I didn't think that those performances were enough to jolt them back into the top 10. So Riley Leonard just keeps his place after a 35-14 win. Again, shout out to the Notre Dame defense for coming in big in this one for him. Number 9 and 8 in this list are the same as last week. Jackson Dart and Curtis Rourke both had a bye week this past weekend. They hold on to their spots. Someone who didn't hold on to their spot comes in at number 7, and that is Quinn Ewers. He was number 5 last week in this game against Arkansas. 20 of 32, 176, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, in a 20-10 win. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you here. I was expecting a little bit more from Quinn Ewers in this game. I mean, I watched Jackson Dart in the same exact stadium throw for 515 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, Arkansas's corners are not necessarily their strong suit this year. With Texas having all these different options out wide, namely Isaiah Bond, you got Matthew Golden in there as well, Helm at tight end. Like, there were so many different options for Texas. I thought that this was going to be another run and shoot type game from them. Like, you look at the game last week against Florida, 49-17, I believe was the final there. Quinn Ewers had 5 touchdowns and 333 yards. And we talked about, like, the numbers there are a little bit, I don't want to say misleading because it's not easy to throw for 333 yards and 5 touchdowns, but they weren't like, it wasn't the most insane performance I've ever seen in my life, if that makes any sense. And this game this week, coming off the game against Florida, after watching Ole Miss against Arkansas, I thought Texas would do something similar here, and they just didn't. And Quinn Ewers did, again, have 2 passing touchdowns in this game. His first one hit to Matthew Golden, faked the screen route, and the safety completely bit on it, just leaving Matthew Golden wide-ass open in the back corner of the end zone. His second one also went to Matthew Golden. This one, he rolled out to his right, hit Golden near the front pylon. Very smart throw, or very good throw to zip it in there before the cornerback was able to make a play on it. But, and he had a very nice dig route throw to Silas Bolden and went for 17 yards to get them across the 50-yard line to the Arkansas 33, which eventually would set up the touchdown to Matthew Golden. But early on in the game, the reason that he dropped, because the stats aren't, like, brutal or anything. Sure, I was expecting a little bit more than 176 yards, but the thing that really dropped him down in this, he threw about 4 or 5, maybe I'm being a little harsh, 3 or 4, maybe 5 passes in this game that could have or should have been intercepted, and they were dropped. Like, there was just a few times this game was like, good Lord, dude, what are you looking at? Why are you trying to fit the ball in that window, or why are you trying to float the ball in there? Like, he didn't end up with any interceptions, and sometimes it pays to be better be lucky than good. In this game, I would say Ewers was pretty lucky from time to time. He still put up decent numbers again. 2 touchdowns, 176 yards, 20-10 win, double-digit win on the road in the SEC. Not easy. Yeah, just not the greatest performance again. Maybe I'm being harsh. You might feel like I'm being really harsh on Quinn Ewers in this game, but I just don't think this was one of his better performances, especially following a game against Florida where he threw for over 300 yards, had 5 touchdowns, and then going up against a team that Jackson Dart threw 6 touchdowns and 515 yards. I thought I was expecting a little bit more from Ewers. I'm not going to lie. Number 6 on this list, I thought about moving him up to number 5, if I'm being 100% honest, but he comes in at number 6. It is Carson Beck. This is Carson Beck's best game of the season. And I'm including the Clemson game. I'm including games against like Tennessee Tech in there. This is Carson Beck's best game of the season. 347 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Also had a rushing touchdown with 32 yards on the ground. It's his first rushing touchdown of the season. And I could say with the utmost confidence that this is the first time in a while from Carson Beck that I think he's actually looked like he's had fun playing football. That's the name of the game. Like, at the end of the day, football is just a game. You want to have fun. You don't want to be stressed out every time because it didn't look like Georgia trusted him to make throws down the field. They were taking a lot of shorter passes. He wasn't being asked to throw it in tight windows or anything. This game, he was feeling himself. And against Tennessee, back at home, coming off a rough game against Ole Miss, coming off a rough game before that, coming off a rough game before that. Like, he had a string of rough games. We talked about those road matchups in the SEC. You look at games against Florida. I know that was a neutral site, but it's in Florida. I'm going to count that as a road game. You look at the game against Texas. You look at the game against Alabama. Sure, he came back, was able to bounce back in the game against Alabama. But 4 turnovers in the game, including a safety, like, that is not the greatest performance of all time. I don't care what he did the rest of the game. It's nice to see him bounce back, but still, not great. This game with the 3 total touchdowns, the rushing touchdown was really nice to see, but he had a run earlier in the game. They picked up 14 yards, and he was right around the 35-yard line. He broke a few arm tackles, one around his waist, the other one around his ankle, and then tried to lower his shoulder, I guess, or kind of just lunged himself into the Tennessee cornerback or Tennessee safety. And you could see his face. He did like little first down celebration too. Like, he was really feeling himself after that. You saw him hit Oscar Delp, in the back of the end zone, right over the top of the linebacker's head. Like, it was just a great throw. And he got the Tennessee defenders to jump off sides multiple times this game, had a few free plays down the field, which he hit on, because it's nice to have those free plays, but you want to, like, hit those free plays as well. He had a really, really nice throw to Arian Smith down the far sideline for 11 yards of 3rd and 6, rolled out to his right, hit him right before the defender can get there. I really don't know how the defender could get there, but as the old saying goes, you can't defend a perfect pass, and Beck threw a perfect ball there. His rushing touchdown was very nice to see as well, as we brought up before. Flashed a little bit of that athleticism in there again. First rushing touchdown of the season. Saw him hit a very, very nice throw to London Humphreys down the far side for 28. The announcer said that it was a back shoulder ball. I don't know if I'd classify it fully as a back shoulder ball, but it was still a very nice throw because I still don't understand how London Humphreys was able to come up with the ball. But hey, at the end of the game, he caught it, so that's great. But again, this was Beck's best game of the year. I think he threw with confidence. I think he looked like he was having fun. He didn't look like he was seeing ghosts or anything, and they came away with a nice win against a top 10 opponent. Now, you can throw in ref ball or whatever you want in there. You can throw that. We're not going to talk about that. I didn't see anything. They didn't call it. I'm not a Georgia fan or a Tennessee fan, so I don't really care about what happened in regards to the ref situation in that game. But I saw a lot of people bitching and moaning about it on social media. But Carson Beck, I thought he looked really good. It was a nice bounce-back game. This is the type of game that we have been waiting to see from Carson Beck. This is the game of a quarterback that actually is a first-round talent. Not the games we've seen before. I just need him to follow these types of performances up, and he should this week against Massachusetts. If he does it, then we're going to have back to some very uncomfortable conversations. But again, I almost moved him up to 5. I was really close to moving up to number 5. And number 5 on this week's list is Drew Aller. 17-19, 247, 3 tuds, 22 yards on the ground against Purdue. 49-10 win there. Yeah, this is back-to-back weeks for Drew Aller where the offense at Penn State is just clicking on all cylinders. Like the game against Washington, they would have scored. They had a fumble and a missed field goal. Apart from those two miscues, they would have scored a touchdown on every single drive. I'm pretty sure, or at least registered points on every single drive. And Washington had, I believe, the conference's top passing defense. Drew Aller looked really good in that game. This game against Purdue, on the road, sure, their defense is nowhere near Washington's. And Drew Aller had 2 passing touchdowns before he had an incompletion in the game. Like he was 9 for 9 with 2 touchdowns early in the game. And I like the growth that I've seen from Drew Aller. And I think the defense is starting to respect him a little bit more as a runner. Like there's been a couple times this year, we brought it up last week against Washington, where he rolls out, steps into the pocket, or rolls out and steps up towards the line of scrimmage. The defender has to come in on him because he might pick up a first down with his legs. He did that in this game. He actually did that in this game. He had a very nice run where he broke a couple tackles on 1st and 10. He stepped back in the pocket. Defender came out the round of left tackle, did a very nice job fielding that, broke a couple arm tackles, and then cut up field and was able to break another high tackle, which Drew Aller, 6'5", 250? You're not going to get him on a high tackle. That's just stupid. Why are you trying to tackle Drew Aller up high? But back to the original point, I think him being able to draw on the defenders and dump those off to his running backs, whether it's Katron Allen or Nick Singleton, like he did against Washington too. Like those are the types of plays you want to see where he's not really forcing him, but you can see his head move all over the place. You could see him checking out his reads, then stepping up in the pocket smartly. Like his little dink to Katron Allen that went from 20 yards, like that was a really, really nice play. On 2nd and 14 too, just a little flip, nothing like spectacular or anything. And then you have his last touchdown of the game to hit Trey Wallace in the end zone, just wide open. Wide open. Rolls out to his right, really just doesn't miss him. When the receiver is that wide open, just don't miss him. It's kind of like the same thing with the Quinn Ewers touchdown to Matthew Golden where the safety completely bit on the screen pass and Golden was able to get behind him for an easy touchdown. Like, yeah, just a really easy game from Drew Aller. Again, I could see an argument to have Carson Beck above Drew Aller. Given Carson Beck's performance, if you just want to look at level of opponent, Tennessee versus Purdue, yeah, that's a little different. It's a little bit different criteria there. But I thought Drew Aller played well. He had 2 passing touchdowns before he had an incompletion in this game. 3 touchdowns in total in the game. He had a very nice throw to Tyler Warren for his first passing touchdown of the game. Or is it first or second passing touchdown? Hold on. I cannot remember. I think it was his second passing touchdown. I believe it was. It was either his first or second touchdown. I don't remember exactly. But regardless, I thought he played well. I thought he played really well, so I got to move him up to number 5. Number 4 is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Not a great game from the Tigers, 27-16 loss at Florida. I thought this could be a bounce-back game for the Tigers. They've had a couple really rough games back to back. Like you look at the A&M game, you look at the Alabama game, and then you look at this game against Florida. All 3 of these games can be summed up by LSU just not bothering to show up in the second half. Like a game against A&M. Sure, they had a couple missed field goals in the first half, but they had a decent lead going in the locker room. Second half, Nussmeier turns the ball over, defense doesn't show up, and they end up getting beat up by double digits. I don't remember the exact score. You look at the Alabama game. I think the score was 21-6 going into halftime, and they kind of just gave up at the end of the first half. Like they could have had a touchdown drive to end the first half, and they were just like, yeah, you know what? Or at least a field goal drive. And they go in the locker room. They go in the second half. They drive down the field. Nussmeier throws an interception in the red zone. They end up getting beat by 40 points. With Jalen, if it wasn't for a touchdown with 11 seconds left or whatever from Nussmeier, they would have beaten by 40 with Jalen Milroe having 185 rushing yards or something like that. And then this game, similar story. Second half, halftime, close game. Second half starts, and he ended up losing the game by double digits again. Now, Nussmeier didn't have an interception in this game. He did fumble the ball, but his offensive lineman recovered the fumble, and his offensive lineman ran upfield and then fumbled it again, and only this time Florida recovered it. Like, it's not necessarily the most ideal situation to be in, but you know what? You can't really. It was funny. It was funny to see. Definitely something that I was not expecting to see when I turned the game on, but that's what happened. And there's no interception in this game, which has been kind of a concern from Nussmeier these past few weeks. Like, he had 2 last week against Alabama. He had, 3 against Texas A&M. And this game, the main thing you could kind of take away from Nussmeier's performance in this game is that he was sacked 7 times. Like, going into the A&M game, I want to say, he had 2 sacks going into that game. I think since then he's been sacked 11 times. And one of those things that was big for Nussmeier going into that game was his ability to be anticipatory, to avoid sacks, to throw receivers open and all that kind of stuff. But the sacks have not really helped things. And the interceptions are definitely not helping things. Getting sacked 7 times in one game is never the most ideal situation to be in. But that being said, I still thought Nussmeier played all right. I don't want to say he played great. I do not want to sit here and say he played great or act like he played great or anything, because he didn't. And that would be stupid of me to sit here and say that. But I thought he played all right. He made some really tough throws in this game. You look at his throw to Mason Taylor on 3rd and 6 on one of their early drives in the game. Threw it on a nice little out route, hit it between 2 defenders from Florida to get a first down there. His touchdown pass to Aaron Anderson from 28 yards out on 3rd and 9. He got hit while he threw, and it was still in stride. It's still an inch-perfect pass from Nussmeier to lead Anderson into the end zone for a score. He had a really nice throw to Kyron Lacey for 13 yards on 3rd down. I should say really nice throw. That might be a little too much there, because it was a little low, but Lacey went down and got it. Lacey's a very talented wide receiver, so you expect him to make those kind of catches. But you look at Nussmeier rolling out to his left, throwing it back across his body, hitting C.J. Daniels for 7 yards on 4th and 3, just extending the drive. Like, he had moments in this game. It was far from perfect, which you could say the last few weeks has been far from perfect. The fumble wasn't great, but the offensive lineman recovered, so you're like, oh, they're fine. And then the offensive lineman fumbled the ball, and you're like, ah, shit. Well, Florida eventually got the ball anyways. The football gods were like, hey, LSU, you're not allowed to have the football here. This is Florida's ball. You're not supposed to have this. So, yeah, it wasn't a great performance by any means. I don't think it was a bad performance or really bad performance by any means either. So he'll just stay at number 4 on this week. Number 3, I don't really know if there's much I can really say about this. It's Jalen Milroe. They played Mercer. Alabama played Mercer. Jalen Milroe, 186 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also 43 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown there. Here at Robbie Outs for a 44-yard score, just wide open, stayed calm in the face of the defender. Like, this is stupid. Why am I even talking about this game? Why am I talking about Alabama versus Mercer? He did have a very nice throw to Jeremy Bernard down the near sideline as well on a nice little wheel route. Threw it, hit him on his body, because it was one of those plays where, like, if you throw that little bit further upfield, that could get easily intercepted. The Mercer defender was waiting right there for it, but he smartly put it on the body of his receiver, and he was able to pick up a decent amount of yards, 23 yards. But again, it's just Alabama versus Mercer. They're up 38-0, and then Jalen Milroe gets taken out of the game for Ty Simpson. They finish up winning 52-7. And they're taking on Oklahoma this next weekend, and who have lost 4 of their last 5 games. That one win came against Maine. So Oklahoma's just not a very good football team. We said that numerous weeks ago when we were talking about Quinn Ewers and Texas playing Oklahoma, and they were there 18th. Like, they're just not a very good football team. But yeah, I don't expect Alabama to have too many problems given the fact that it's on the road. I don't really see them having too many issues in there. Number 2 on this list is Shedeur Sanders. Threw an interception on the first play of the game. Very first play of the game. But that being said, if he doesn't get hit, you could say there's a chance that if he doesn't get hit and throw off the path of the ball, that he leads the receiver upfield and they score a touchdown. That's how the game of inches. So football, like I'm not saying it's guaranteed that they would have scored a touchdown in their opening play of the game, but the safety got sucked down by the slot receiver, and this ball, if he's not hit, can lead the receiver further up the field. There's nobody in the area. If you go back and watch the play, there's nobody deep in that section of the field where the receiver would have been if this ball got completed. Maybe the safety from the other side of the field comes over and makes a play. Maybe the corner on the outside on the near sideline is able to come back and make a play. But what I'll say on this play, though it got intercepted, the defense was able to come up big, get a sack on third, when Utah had the ball, like the Colorado 3 or something like that, got an 11-yard sack, forced them to kick a field goal. Like in that situation, you're able to stop them for a field goal. That's very big. You also had a throw here to LeJontay Wester for 18 yards on 3rd and 24. Yes, it didn't get a first down. It was only 18-yard pick, or only an 18-yard pickup, but you're not really expecting to pick up 24 yards on 3rd down. You're not really expecting to do that. What you're trying to do in that situation is get into 4th and manageable. Because Colorado's going for this. Like the ball is at what? Like the ball ends up being at the 45-yard line or something like that. Or 40-yard line. I don't remember exactly. I think of the 40-yard line. Regardless, you're not kicking a field goal. And given Colorado's skill position players on the opposite side of the ball and the quarterback that they have, they're not punting it. So you're just going to try and get a first down there. But he was able to draw him off sides, hits Will Shepard in the end zone for the score, was able to go up and get the ball. And him and Will Shepard would connect a little bit later on another fade ball. We had that last week against Utah. Those two have been a very nice connection on the fade balls. You see his throw to Travis Hunter where he just says, hey, Travis, go up and make a play, brother. It's 4th and 8. We're just going to launch the ball down the field and hope you come down with it. Because Travis Hunter is that dude. Travis Hunter is one of the best players overall in college football, which is why he's in the running for the Heisman Trophy. Just an athletic specimen at both corner and wide receivers, able to come down with the ball there. Look at a nice layered throw that he had to Jalen Milroe. Then I'm going for 47 yards. Like that, he had a very good game. Shedeur Sanders had himself a very, very good game. Like it wasn't like the interception's the thing to look at, and it's the first play of the game and that kind of stuff. But I thought he played well. A lot more balls down the field. Because last week against Texas Tech, it was a lot of screens. A lot of screen passes for Shedeur Sanders. But this week was a lot of throws down the field. Some big-time throws down the field. Was it a perfect game? No. Some of the balls he threw in this game were a lot of go-up-and-get-it type balls. Like we talked about the throw to Travis Hunter, the Will Shepard, the first touchdown. Yes, it was offsides, but the touchdown to Will Shepard, like they weren't like amazing throws, but it was a good performance from Shedeur Sanders, and he comes in at number 2. And then Cam Ward just keeps his spot from last week. They had a bye this week, Miami did, but they take on Wake Forest. So let's go over that. Let's see who has the what teams play who this weekend. We'll go over each quarterback. We'll recap the top 10. So number 1 on this list is Cam Ward. Cam Ward and Miami take on Wake Forest at home, trying to bounce back from their loss against Georgia Tech. Shedeur Sanders comes at number 2. Him and Colorado will be traveling to Arrowhead to take on Kansas, who beat Iowa State and BYU these past 2 weeks. They're on a murderer's row right now, so Colorado, just be careful. Be careful. Number 3 is Jalen Milroe. Him and Alabama will be taking on Oklahoma on the road in Norman. Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. Garrett Nussmeier comes at number 4. Him and the Tigers will be taking on Vanderbilt. Night game at Tiger Stadium, so that's big. Drew Aller comes at number 5. Him and Penn State will be traveling to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who have a very solid defense. So that could be an interesting one for them. Could be a potential trap game for the Nittany Lions. Number 6 is Carson Beck. Him and Georgia take on, again, Massachusetts. At home, though, because remember, Missouri played Massachusetts on the road, so they have Massachusetts at home. Quinn Ewers comes in at number 7. Him and Texas will be taking on Kentucky. Curtis Rourke comes in at number 8 off a bye, taking on Ohio State at the Horseshoe for Big Noon Kickoff. Jackson Dart at number 9. Also coming off a bye week, him and Ole Miss will be going to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. And Riley Leonard comes in at number 10. And the Fighting Irish will be going to Yankee Stadium to take on the Army Black Knights. Exciting stuff this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Quarterback Prospect Rankings. Make sure to check out the blog post down below. Check out the podcast as well. All the other links to the social media accounts down in the description below. I've been Logan Blackman, the self-proclaimed draft quote-unquote expert. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. And I will see you guys later. Peace.